Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to understand what companies are really up to before they even know it themselves. Today we're diving into Helen of Troy Limited's latest report, and let's just say they've been busy making some significant changes to their financial playbook. This report is all about a big update to Helen of Troy's credit agreement, and it has got some juicy details about how they plan to manage their money going forward. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, if you are new here and love getting straightforward corporate insights without all the jargon, hit that subscribe button, and for those who want to chat with us and other viewers about these filings, join our Discord community. The link is in the description below. So, what is the big news? Helen of Troy Limited, along with their subsidiary Helen of Troy Texas Corporation, have made a significant amendment to their credit agreement. This agreement, originally signed on the 15th of February 2024, has been updated on the 25th of November 2025 with Bank of America, NA, and other lenders. Think of a credit agreement as a company's borrowing contract. This amendment shows they're tweaking the terms of how they borrow money. One of the first major adjustments is a reduction in their revolving credit facility commitment. This means the total amount of money they can borrow on a revolving basis has gone down from a cool $1 billion to $750 million. This could signal a few things. Maybe they feel they do not need as much readily available cash as before. Or perhaps they are proactively managing their debt levels. It is a pretty substantial cut, so we will be keeping an eye on why this decision was made. Next up, let's talk about interest rates. The amendment adds a new tier based on something called the net leverage ratio. If this ratio is 4.00 to 1.00 or higher, the interest rates on their borrowings go up. For base rate loans, it's plus a margin of 1.375%, and for SOFR loans, it is plus 2.375%. There is also an extra 0.10% charge for SOFR borrowings. Essentially, if the company takes on too much debt relative to its earnings, it will cost them more to borrow money. This is a classic way lenders try to protect themselves when the borrower's risk profile increases. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Helen of Troy is changing its financial covenants, which are basically rules the company must follow to avoid breaching its loan agreement. Firstly, they are changing how they measure interest coverage. They are switching from using a consolidated EBIT measure to a consolidated EBITDA measure. EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It is a broader measure of profitability that often makes companies look better than EBIT alone because it adds back non-cash expenses like depreciation and amortization. So, this change could make it easier for them to meet their interest coverage targets, but perhaps the most significant change is to the leverage ratio itself. This ratio measures a company's total debt against its earnings or assets. They have laid out a new schedule for this maximum ratio, and it looks like they are getting more restrictive over time. For example, at the end of November 2025, the ratio can be no more than 4.50 to 1.00, but by August 2027 and going forward, it must be 3.50 to 1.00 or less. This means they are setting a clear path to reduce their overall debt levels relative to their earnings. This is a strong indicator that management is focused on deleveraging, which is generally a positive sign for financial health and stability. They also have a provision called a leverage holiday that can be used in connection with a qualified acquisition after August 2027, which means they might pause these restrictions if they make a significant purchase. Beyond the core financial metrics, other restrictive covenants known as negative covenants have also been adjusted. These include limits on general investments, unsecured debt, and something called permitted receivables financings. These are basically controls on how the company can spend its money and how it can finance itself through things like selling its accounts receivable. These adjustments suggest a tighter rein on their expansion and financing strategies, at least until August 2027. It is also important to note that the credit agreement still has standard events of default. These include things like not making payments, not following the rules in the agreement, or filing for bankruptcy. If any of these happen, or if they default on other significant debt agreements, the lenders can demand immediate repayment of all outstanding loans and cancel any future lending commitments. This is standard practice, but it underscores the importance of adhering to the terms of this amended agreement. The company also put out a press release on the 25th of November 2025 to announce these changes. This is pretty standard for material events like this. The disclaimer here is that this information is being furnished, meaning it is being provided to the C but not officially filed in the same way as the main report. This is often done for press releases and other public communications. Now, this next part is crucial for anyone looking at the company's future prospects. They've included a standard forward-looking statements disclaimer. This is a legal protection that says the company is not making any guarantees about future performance. They list a bunch of words like anticipates, believes, expects. and plans. If you see these words, remember that the company is sharing its expectations, but there is no guarantee these things will actually happen. They are subject to many risks and uncertainties, and actual results can be very different. This sentence is key. They are saying that if things change or if new information comes out, they are not obligated to update these future predictions. So, if you are investing or making decisions based on these statements, it is vital to remember that they are just educated guesses, and the company isn't promising to keep you updated if those guesses turn out to be wrong. The report also points to their annual report, the 10K, for a more detailed look at the risks they face. They mention a lot of potential problems here, from supply chain disruptions and cyber attacks to changes in consumer demand and international trade issues. They even highlight the risks associated with trade policies from administrations like the current US president, and the potential impact of tariffs on products from China, Mexico, or Vietnam. They also touch on environmental, employment, and tax laws, and the growing focus on climate change and sustainability. It is a pretty comprehensive list of things that could potentially hurt their business performance. One very specific risk they mention is the significant additional impairment of goodwill, indefinite, lived and definite, lived intangible assets or other long-lived assets. In simple terms, goodwill and intangible assets are valuable things a company has, like brand reputation or patents, that aren't physical. If the company doesn't perform as well as expected, these assets can lose value, and the company has to report that loss. This is a significant financial risk that could directly impact their balance sheet. Finally, the report lists the documents that are being filed with it. The most important one here is the First Amendment to the credit agreement itself, filed as Exhibit 10.1. This is the actual legal document detailing all the changes we've discussed. They also included a press release as Exhibit 99.1, and the report is signed off by Brian L. Grass, the Chief Financial Officer and Principal Financial Officer. This confirms the company's leadership is officially endorsing these changes. So, what is my take on all of this? Helen of Troy is clearly in a period of financial recalibration. The reduction in their revolving credit commitment and the tightening of their leverage ratio covenants suggest a strong push towards financial discipline and debt reduction. They are, in essence, preparing for a future where they rely less on debt and more on their own generated earnings to fund operations and growth. The shift in how they measure interest coverage from EBIT to EBITDA might be a way to ease the path to compliance, but the overall trend towards lower leverage is a more fundamental and positive strategic move. The risks they highlight are pretty standard for a global company in today's environment, but the mention of trade policy impacts and potential asset impairments are worth noting. The company seems to be proactively managing its financial structure, which is generally a good thing, but it also implies they might be sensing potential headwinds, or simply want to strengthen their balance sheet to weather future economic uncertainties, especially with potential shifts in global trade. The key takeaway here is that Helen of Troy is actively trying to de-risk its financial profile. They are reducing their available borrowing capacity and setting a clear roadmap to lower their debt. This could lead to slower growth in the short term if they are more cautious with spending and acquisitions, but it should lead to a more stable and resilient company in the long run. It is a strategic pivot that shows management is focused on fundamental financial health. Alright, that is our breakdown of Helen of Troy's latest filing. What is your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Do you think these changes are a smart move for long-term stability? Drop your thoughts in the comments if this analysis was valuable. Hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.